Imagine you are standing at the edge of a deep, calm lake. Someone standing next to you drops a massive stone into the water. The splash is immediate. The ripples are strongest right where the stone hit. The water there is turbulent, rising high, pushing outward with immense force, but you are standing on the far shore, hundreds of yards away. By the time the water reaches your feet, the energy is gone. The ripple is a mere shadow of its original strength. The water barely moves. In our global economy, that stone is new money, and you are standing on the far shore. Most people believe that when the government prints money, it spreads evenly through the system, like rain falling on a field. They believe that if the money supply increases, everyone eventually gets their fair share. This is the great financial lie of the modern era. Money does not fall like rain. It flows like a river, and where you stand along that river determines whether you become wealthy or whether you are slowly liquidated. There is a name for this phenomenon, a ghost in the machine that has been haunting our markets for 300 years. It is called the Cantillon Effect. It is the reason why the rich get richer, not because they work harder, but because they are closer to the source. It is the reason why your grocery bill rises faster than your salary. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as it was designed to, and it is designed to harvest your time before the money even reaches your pocket. We live in a period of unprecedented financial confusion. You see the stock market hitting all-time highs while the average person struggles to afford a home. You see luxury brands reporting record profits while the middle class is drowning in credit card debt. On paper, the economy looks booming. In reality, it feels like a slow-motion collapse. Most people misunderstand this disconnect. They blame corporate greed. They blame political parties. They blame the war or the supply chain. While those factors play a role, they are symptoms of a much deeper psychological conflict. We are using a system of money that rewards those who receive it first and punishes those who receive it last. This creates a society of permanent precarity. You work more hours, produce more value, and yet the goalposts of a stable life keep moving further into the distance. It creates a sense of profound unfairness that most people can feel but cannot explain. The conflict is not between the left and the right. It is between the people at the splash zone and the people on the far shore. If you don't understand how the money enters the system, you will spend your entire life wondering why you are running as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. To understand the Cantillon effect, we have to travel back to the 18th century. Richard Cantillon was a banker and an adventurer who noticed something strange during the gold rushes of his time. He realized that when a new gold mine was discovered, the people who owned the mine were the first to get the gold. They didn't wait for prices to change. They took that new gold and immediately went out to buy land, servants, and luxury goods. Because the rest of the town didn't know there was more gold yet, prices stayed low. The mine owners bought everything at yesterday's prices with tomorrow's money. By the time the shopkeepers and the laborers received that gold in exchange for their work, the secret was out. The influx of gold had driven up the price of everything. The mine owners got the assets. The workers got the inflation. In our modern world, the gold mine is the central bank, and the gold is digital credit. When the central bank decides to stimulate the economy, they don't send a check to your mailbox. They lower interest rates and buy government bonds. This injects new money directly into the banking system. The banks, the hedge funds, and the giant corporations are the first to touch this new capital. They are at the splash zone. They use this cheap, newly created money to buy stocks, real estate, and businesses. And they do it while prices are still relatively low. They are the mine owners of the 21st century. This creates a hidden mechanic that most people never see because it is buried in the complexity of the bond market. Imagine a billionaire who can borrow $100 million at a 2% interest rate. He takes that money and buys an apartment complex. The mere act of him buying that complex along with other billionaires doing the same drives up the price of real estate. Now, imagine you, the average worker. By the time that stimulus has trickled through the economy and perhaps resulted in a small raise for you, the price of that apartment complex has doubled. Your 2% raise is meaningless because the asset you wanted to buy is now 50% more expensive. The billionaire used the new money to buy the asset. You are using the old, devalued money to pay him rent. This is the mathematical heist. It is a transfer of wealth that requires no taxes, no laws, and no violence. It is simply the result of where you sit in the hierarchy of money distribution. The people closest to the central bank receive the benefit of the new money without the sting of the inflation it causes. The people furthest away, the savers, the pensioners, the salaried workers, receive the inflation first and the money last. It is a silent liquidation of the middle class. The irony of our time is that we are told this system is necessary for stability. The financial media tells us that central banks must manage the money supply to prevent a depression. They use academic language to hide a predatory reality. They talk about liquidity and quantitative easing as if they are medicinal treatments for the economy. But for the average person, these are not treatments. They are the cause of the disease. Look at the reality versus the hype. Social media tells you that the way to get ahead is to day trade, to buy the latest crypto coin, or to follow hustle culture. They promise you a shortcut to the splash zone. But notice who is actually getting rich. The exchanges, the banks, the people who own the platforms. They are selling you a map to a treasure chest that they have already emptied. The illusion is that everyone can be a winner in a debased currency system. The reality is that for every person who moons on a speculative trade, 10,000 others are losing their purchasing power in their savings accounts. The hype keeps you focused on the noise so you don't notice the signal. And the signal is that the labor you do today will buy less tomorrow than it did yesterday. There is a deep psychological truth to why we let this happen. As humans, we are wired to focus on nominal numbers. If your salary goes from $50,000 to $55,000, your brain registers a win. Even if the cost of your rent, your food, and your health insurance has gone up by 20%, you still feel like you are moving forward. This is called money illusion. It is a cognitive glitch that the system exploits perfectly. We focus on the digits on the screen rather than the utility of those digits. It is incredibly difficult for the human mind to grasp that the value of the yardstick itself is shrinking. This creates a state of permanent psychological exhaustion. You feel like you are running on a treadmill that is slowly accelerating. You blame yourself. You think you need more education, more side hustles, more discipline. You don't realize that you are competing against a printing press. Even those who understand the Cantillon Effect often fail to act because the emotional difficulty is too high. To act on this knowledge requires you to stop trusting the currency. It requires you to move from the comfort of saving to the volatility of owning. And for most people, that transition feels like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. The system counts on your fear. It counts on the fact that you would rather be safely drained than dangerously free. So, we are left with a world that is splitting into two distinct classes: the owner class and the renter class. the people who benefit from the ripples, and the people who are drowned by them. This is not a conspiracy of a few men in a dark room. It is the inevitable endgame of a debt-based monetary system. A system that treats your time as a commodity to be harvested by those who control the ledger. The middle class was an anomaly of history, a brief period where labor actually had leverage. But as the Cantillon Effect accelerates, that leverage is being stripped away. When the people who do the work can no longer afford the world they are building, the story begins to change. The social contract starts to fray. People start looking for exits. Some look for gold. Some look for Bitcoin. Some look for land. They are all trying to do the same thing. They are trying to move upstream, closer to the source of value and away from the reach of the ripple. The question you have to ask yourself is not how much you can earn this year. The question is where you stand along the river. Are you receiving the money before the prices rise? Or are you the one paying for the party after the guests have already left? The water is rising, the ripples are getting larger, and the shore you are standing on is getting smaller every day. What is your plan for when the far shore finally disappears? The system is banking on the fact that you won't even notice the waters at your chin until it's too late to swim.